22 sacks over the past 2 seasons. This is the crazy stat right here. 49ers have had 8 defensive tackles not named Eric Armstead last year go through the rotation. They combined for 59 pressures. Javon Hargrave on his own had 66 pressures last year. So this is a huge signing for the 49ers at their exact position of need. We'd figured that he'd be a little too pricey for them. He's going to be really pricey, $21 million a year. We don't know how it's structured yet, but it seems that the 49ers will almost certainly have to do some restructuring and push some of the cap backwards, and I'm sure they'll do that, and I'm sure that they were willing to take this as a calculated risk just because they wanted to make sure that they're building a team that can beat somebody like Patrick Mahomes in the Super Bowl. And to do that, you have to have a strong 4-man rush. That's the one antidote to a really good quarterback, and Javon Hargrave gives the 49ers a really good chance to field that type of pass rush.
Yeah, speaking of Patrick Mahomes in Kansas City, they stole Charvarius Sword away, Mooney Man, from Kansas City. They identified that cornerback spot as the weakness going into free agency last year. But, as you mentioned, the D tackle and, in particular the middle push, and Hargrave in their 5-man front where they'd open games in, he'd line up as a nose, right over the center. Then he'd slide over, with Cox and play a double 3 technique. And, predominantly from what I saw, he lined up at right defensive tackle over the left guard. So you put him and Bosa on the same side, and then you got Armstead. So as far as a football player, David, when was the last time the 49ers, arguably, if you take all the quarterbacks away, and, Rodgers is not an unrestricted free agent, neither is Lamar. On a lot of boards, he's the number 1 available free agent this morning, and the 49ers got him immediately. When was the last time they did that? Deion Sanders? You have to go back that far?
Yeah, you might have to, especially if you're taking away. Well, you hardly have. Free agency's tricky, and I'm thinking right now to answer your question, but I'm also thinking context here. Entering this free agent market, all the talk had been it's going to be a boring year, especially for the 49ers. The cap had gone up, so a lot of teams were able to keep their own guys. So just in general, it's rare for super blue chip players to hit free agency, especially given the current cap conditions. But in this case, it happened, and it happened at a position that can have tremendous impact on the rest of the line. I think, Philadelphia saw it last year. They had 70 sacks during the regular season, and the work that Hargrave did at the positions that you were outlining was very, very instrumental in the success that guys like Josh Sweat and Brandon Graham had rushing from the outside. So, yeah, this is an impact signing for the 49ers. It happened really quickly. I think a little over an hour into the tampering window is when Adam Schefter first reported it. And then everything kind of just flooded in at the same time, which made this a tremendous day for the 49ers in the offseason. Because they also, saw a couple things they expected. And I think a couple things that make them happy. Mike McGlinchey signing for huge money elsewhere, and Jimmy Garoppolo signing with the Raiders. With the McGlinchey thing, though, both the McGlinchey and the Garoppolo things will help the 49ers in the compensatory pick formula, which they've mastered this year. And those 2 signings should help them for next season. So all that happened, within that 20, 30-minute window.
David Lombardi has joined us again. Javon Hargrave, the big news today, goes from the Eagles to the 49ers. As you said, Mike McGlinchey to the Broncos. They lose him. Jimmy Garoppolo goes to the Raiders. Hassan Ridgeway follows D'Amico Ryans to Houston. Kevin Givens was a restricted free agent. The 49ers keep him as well. What do you expect next as far as the 49ers? We're hearing edge guys. They'd like to keep Emmanuel Mosley. By the way, I didn't mention Deshaun Gibson. Does that mean Jimmy Ward is out the window? What do you expect next from the 49ers?
Well, Deshaun Gibson coming back at safety, which is another, I think, economical. Well, Hargrave's not an economical move, I guess I should say. But the Deshaun Gibson signing, definitely an economical move for the 49ers, because he was so good last year, and he was really good on run defense, coming down from that safety position. Also the 5 interceptions, more than Tart had in 7 years with the 49ers. So that was a big boost for the 49ers, and they got Gibson back for $2.9 million. Safety. The reason they were able to get him at that kind of discount was because he's going to be 33 next year. So they're hoping that he could stave off other time for at least one more year. But what that does is it obviously closes off the second open starting safety position. Totano Hufanga takes one, and Sean Gibson takes the other, and that means the 49ers will be offering Jimmy Ward only as a nickelback. And Jimmy probably would prefer to sign somewhere as a safety because that's going to pay him more money, but he has recently acknowledged on one of his Instagram lives that re-signing with the 49ers as a nickelback for less money is a possibility. So I think the 49ers would love to do that if, the market ends up not being there for Jimmy Ward to his liking elsewhere. I think somebody reported they were looking at Trey Herndon today. The 49ers were looking at a corner who could play slot corner for them, who has some slot corner starts under his belt. They'll probably be looking for somebody there. I'm curious to see how they fill out the offensive line. Even if they don't go out and get a starting right tackle, I want to see how they're going to fill out spots 6, 7, 8 on that offensive line, because that obviously still is an issue. And, the moves can happen anywhere to just help bolster the team, but those are some of the ones that I think are the most pressing needs for the 49ers.
Well, how do they pay for all this? They got to be cap compliant. As you know, Wednesday at 1 o'clock when the new year starts, what do they do with Hargrave's deal? You assume that's going to be backloaded. Well, you wrote they got about $4 million, so they're going to have to restructure some contracts in the next 48 hours, huh?
Yeah, and last year they had to restructure contracts to carry Jimmy Garoppolo into the new league year. And they did that through Eric Armstead and George Kittle by converting the base salary into signing bonus. And they did that on Tuesday of last year, of this week, right? So the new league year always starts on Wednesday, and they did that on Tuesday morning. So I would look out for news on that front to be coming tomorrow. We'll see. I don't know how much exactly they're going to have to restructure, how much room they'll have to open up, just because I don't know how this deal with Hargrave is set up yet. But yes, the backloading is the way that they've been doing it. That makes sense because the cap is going up every year. So you're just trying to surf that wave, stay ahead of the cap. And, you're just trying not to get into a hopeless situation like the Rams, who've had to cut so many players because it finally caught up to them, and the restructuring just wasn't possible at the level that they needed to sustain the roster. And I think the 49ers are still surfing that wave. They're still ahead of that wave, even with this Hargrave deal. We went into this offseason saying they could probably afford one big-ticket signing, but we weren't sure if they were going to execute that big-ticket signing, because this was my first question to John Lynch at the Combine a couple weeks ago. And you got to give him credit for the poker face. I try not to ask in like an obvious way that would make him show his cards, but I wanted to find out if they were willing to spend a little bit of money, not only on the defensive line, but specifically a defensive tackle, because that was the big glaring weakness. And he really just said, no, we believe in Clea Davis. We don't have enough money. We have to do this. We have to take care of this internally. We have to develop our own guys. We have to be sustainable about this. And of course, they turn around 2 weeks later and they sign the biggest free agent of them all, especially a defensive tackle in Javon Hargrave. So it obviously wasn't something that the 49ers were clearly equipped to do. But when we do look at the finances, it is something that they can fit if they handle their other business efficiently with the restructures, and we'll see who else they might sign.
David Lombardi from The Athletic. You got to make sure you're following, reading all his great stuff. He's got a great YouTube channel. Make sure that you keep up to date on everything that he's doing when you want your 49ers news. Jimmy Garoppolo, we're running a poll today, the best post-Steve Young quarterback, and Jimmy's on that list. How are you going to remember Jimmy Garoppolo as a 49er?
Well, I came out with a piece in The Athletic. It's really funny because it was the top 5 Jimmy Garoppolo moments from his last year I wrote it because I thought he was leaving last year. So it was the top 5 moments from his 5 years of the 49ers. And we just kind of stashed it away and didn't run it when he obviously stayed with the team. And we finally ran the piece today, and it's changed into the top 6 moments over the 6 years because I had one from this year. But I'll just go ahead and read the conclusion for you because I think that answers your question about the Jimmy Garoppolo experience. And here it is. Some 49ers fans loved it. Others hated it. They all seem to argue about it. But in the end, they'll all certainly remember it. And the wins did roll in far more often than the losses, which is something that certainly couldn't be said about the 49ers in the many years prior to December 2017 when Garoppolo first started playing for them. So a lot of arguing, but a lot of winning. And I think ultimately he left them in a lot better place. And I think that's how he's going to be remembered in the long term. And I have to say, we talk about it a lot. He was extremely efficient for the 49ers, like very, very efficient. We're talking, top 5 efficiency. Was some of that Kyle Shanahan, some of it the system? Of course. But that's the point, right? You're supposed to integrate with your system, with your coach, and deliver efficient football. I think the biggest trip up for Jimmy Garoppolo was the health. And he got hurt several times, just like these other 49ers quarterbacks have been getting hurt. That's been the Achilles heel of this football team, have been the QB injuries. But when he was healthy, he really delivered for the 49ers in a way that I think is going to age really well. He'll be appreciated over the long run for the turnaround that he helped orchestrate. One thing, I go back to 2017, they were 1-10 when Jimmy Garoppolo took over. 49ers became the first team in NFL history to finish 6-10 after starting 1-10. And I think that really does help underscore the impact that he had in turning this franchise around.
So how would you vote? Post Steve Young, best 49er quarterback between Jeff Garcia, Alex Smith, Colin Kaepernick, or Jimmy Garoppolo, David?
I think you go. I put him behind Jeff Garcia. Probably go. I'm going to go 1 Garcia, 2 Garoppolo, 3 Kaepernick, 4 Alex Smith.
And that's kind of how it's going. Well, right now it's going Jimmy Garoppolo 1, Alex Smith is last, Kaepernick is second. So,
you guys have a poll going on?
Yeah, we have a poll going on right now, about 1,000 votes so far.
Kaepernick at his very, very best was the most explosive out of all of those guys easily, at his very best. But that little peak was definitely shorter than Jimmy Garoppolo when he was healthy. I mean, you can look at some of the advanced stats, and they do really shine a good light on him. The third down expected points added, which is the quarterback's down. It's a stat that's dominated by Patrick Mahomes, as you would expect, because he's the best quarterback in football. Since 2017, since Garoppolo joined the 49ers, only Mahomes is better on third down efficiency. Since 2017, when Garoppolo joined the 49ers in overall efficiency, only Mahomes and Breeze were better. And, I always talk about how well does that quarterback mesh with a team system and execute what the play caller is designed for him. And when Garoppolo was healthy, he did a really good job. And, you have to factor in the injuries too. That's a huge reason of why the 49ers moved on and weren't willing to pay up again for Jimmy Garoppolo this offseason. But in the totality of things, he gave the 49ers a lot of good football. They were 42-19 for a reason when he was under center. And he wasn't the only reason, but he was certainly a huge part of that.
Absolutely. By the way, right tackle losing McGlinchey, do you expect that to be McKivitz at right tackle?
I don't expect anything at this moment. They're not paying McKivitz as a starting right tackle. They're paying him as a swing tackle. It's 2 years, $5.8 million. I think that they might still be a little active here in free agency. Who knows? Somebody like Billy Turner could come in. You just bring him in to compete, or you could trade up a little bit in the draft, package some picks together, grab a guy in the second round. And I think that's going to be a competition. I think it should be a competition. Because McKivitz, he has improved, but, it's still not really a proven player to start at your right tackle position. And I think the contract reflects the truth of the matter is that's going to be something that's ongoing throughout the offseason.
Great stuff, man. Thank you so much for your time, David. We appreciate it. It's going to be fun. It already has been fun. We appreciate it. Make sure you check it out. You got some great numbers up there already. Thanks, man.
All right. Thank you.
See you.